All right, let's talk about Zach Lavine. We heard from the newsbreakers that NBA teams are probing the availability of Zach Lavine and that there's increased openness from both sides to explore a new destination. So that means that from the Bulls' end, who had been pretty steadfast in not wanting to move any of their quote-unquote stars, and Lavine, who had also, expressed his desire to stay in Chicago, sounds like both parties are now open to the change. It makes sense. I mean, most NBA fans and media have for a couple of years now said that basically ever since the Lonzo Ball injury and the situation looked, pretty bleak there, has been calling for this team to break up a little bit. I mean, you've got DeRozan and Zach Lavine is kind of your main wing guys. Vucevic is, he's a really good fourth option. Kind of became the third option with the Lonzo injury. And then they've had kind of a rotating list of point guards and four men there with no one really, showing much potential. And the team just didn't seem like it fit together, whether that's defensively or offensively or just from a chemistry standpoint. Seemed like there was some individual talent, but not a lot of cohesiveness there. Billy Donovan, not a bad coach, but didn't seem like maybe he was either allowed to do what he wanted to do or, was able to play the way he wanted to play with the people in the room in Chicago. So let's get into three potential trades for Zach Lavine and for the Chicago Bulls and what they mean for each side. First up is everybody's favorite, the Los Angeles Lakers. I think with the Lakers' kind of slow start this year, they're going to be throwing in a lot of trades, right? Like everybody thought they won the offseason and re-signing some of their guys and, bringing in Taurean Prince and a few role guys. Everybody thought that this was probably going to be, a team to be reckoned with at the top of the West. It hasn't been that way. I think it's becoming evident that D'Angelo Russell contract was definitely something that was signed to be tradable. Now, most of the Lakers pieces can't be traded until either middle of December or the kind of early middle part of January due to the recently signed trade restriction. But, usually when news breaks like this, unless it's just, really a lot of pressure from the star to move on to another situation, it's going to take a few weeks, maybe even a month or two for something to materialize. So I don't think that this would be a limiting factor for the Lakers at all. Something that I threw together, and I think this would be kind of the framework of a Zach Lavine deal. You've got D'Angelo Russell, obviously, being the highest salary there. Now, getting these next couple of salaries is a little bit tough. The Lakers have a lot of lower salaries and some few mid-tier, which they did put themselves some good trade pieces. But I think you're going to have to throw in both Rui Hachimura and Gabe Vincent. So you're going to be a little bit thin in the backcourt. But, I think, they drafted Hood Schifino out of Indiana. He hasn't really played any. He's been injured. You'd hope he can have some spot minutes there if needed since he was a first-round pick. But I think it's necessary to bring in Lavine, who also can take some of those ball handling duties. And, at the end of the game, it's going to be LeBron anyway. It's going to be LeBron AD pick and roll, and it's going to be guys spotting up and so forth. So I think you're going to have to get some picks if you're Chicago. You can't give this up. I don't really know if there's a lot of teams out there that have the kind of young talent that they can just throw in and make up for the lack of picks. So I think you're going to probably have to get 2 first-rounders, 2 random, farther down the line picks from the Lakers. It was kind of actually tough with them on the pick side of things, just some of where the picks have been traded in the past few years. And also to make the salaries work, actually, you have room to squeeze in Andre Drummond in this trade. So if the Lakers potentially wanted to maybe keep Gabe Vincent and throw a couple of smaller contracts in there, like a Jared Vanderbilt and a Jackson Hayes, to make up that last few $1 million and then bring back Andre Drummond, they could do something like that, or they could straight up just keep a little bit more depth and bring in Drummond to Jackson Hayes really hasn't provided much this year anyway, so I don't think they're going to be wanting to hold on to him. So Drummond could provide some good bench big minutes behind AD. I'm sure AD would want him to play alongside him, but that would be an absolute mess in my opinion. But anyway, I think this is kind of the general framework of a trade with the Lakers. Now let's get on to trade number 2. Trade number 2 is with the Philadelphia 76ers, the hottest team in the NBA right now. And everyone's flying high after the James Harden trade. They're 8-1, top of the Eastern Conference. And, Maxey has shown to be not just an all-star, but most likely a top 20 player in the league, probably going to win all NBA this year. So, something to watch there, but just dropped 50 points a couple nights ago. So they're flying high. Now that they have made that Harden trade, they do have several salaries they can do, but they could actually make this super clean and just trade Tobias Harris because his salary is so close to Zach Lavine. Now, in this scenario, it's really going to depend on which teams, are going to be willing to trade for Lavine. Like, obviously, there's probably going to be better packages out there that other teams could offer, but are they going to want Lavine? Now, I don't know if you're just getting one player back in Tobias Harris, who's going to be a free agent next year. Do you have to throw in extra first-round picks? I mean, Philly has a few. It is a little funky to find the right combination of the first because they've traded a few in the future, but they've gotten some back from the Clippers. But I think they can scrounge together 2 to 3 solid first-round picks, especially if they include any of those Clippers picks. Maybe you want to add a couple more salaries. Maybe you want to get a Patrick Williams back if you're the Sixers and you want to throw somebody else in from Philly's side to make that make sense. There's a lot of flexibility with those types of options there. So I think Philly is a team that definitely could let this play out a little bit, gauge what the market is going to be. Maybe they end up not having to give up as much or give up as many picks, and maybe kind of get them a steal for Lavine, who's still under 30 years old, who's still got some scoring punch, who clearly, I think, in my opinion, would shine as the second, third option on a team. Like, clearly Embiid is your main engine. Maxey is the up-and-coming guy who's been there, who's earned it, who the fans love, who runs the point. And clearly Lavine can come in and play a second or third role to those two guys. I think it would be a good fit. I think it would really solidify Philadelphia as the front runner in the East. I think even with the way Boston is playing, I think Philly could potentially be, a deeper team than Boston, especially if they're not having to give up multiple other contracts in this trade for Lavine. So let's jump on to trade number 3. Trade number 3 is definitely the most interesting in my opinion, and that's because it includes the Oklahoma City Thunder, the team that has not really been in the kind of the acquisition talks for stars recently. They've been in the first round pick harvesting conversation for a couple of years now, but clearly this is the year that they're looking to compete. They've got all their guys healthy and in the starting lineup. Giddey has been the kind of the odd man out a little bit. He's kind of playing off ball to SGA, and he's not really looked at home there. He's not a knockdown shooter. He needs the ball in his hands as well. So I think that having Giddey as the centerpiece for this trade, I think from Oklahoma City's standpoint, they probably don't want to give up Giddey. They're probably still a little resistant, and they're going to want to get blown away before they do that. But you don't want something to happen where his value diminishes over the course of this season if he doesn't really thrive. And then you end up having to get less in return back for him. I think getting present value for Giddey is something that could make the Thunder, a really, really dangerous option in the Western Conference with the pieces that they have around him. You'd have to give him a few extra salaries here. You kind of would take a little bit of the depth from Oklahoma City, but these guys really aren't getting many minutes anyway. I think Aaron Wiggins is a player that they like, but I mean, he's a guy that's not going to be in your future plans with the types of picks and stuff that they have. So in a way, this actually frees up some roster spots as you go forward into the future for some players they can use these draft picks on, or even if they want to make another trade. I mean, they've got so many draft picks. I was getting confused just going through here and picking a couple. Originally had 3 first rounders in here, but I think with Giddey, you don't really need to include that kind of draft capital because I think you're kind of getting at least 1 first round pick kind of level of value with Giddey. So maybe they push for 2. This may be a situation where Chicago would kind of hold them a little bit higher in negotiations because they know that there's not really the matching salary back, and then they know that maybe Oklahoma City needs to make a move. But I don't really think you're going to get Sam Presti to make a panicked move. So maybe you only get 1 first round pick out of this deal. So there's a lot of things that could go different ways there. Maybe you throw a bunch of seconds back or some protected firsts. Maybe lottery protected a couple of years into the future that, Oklahoma City has so many picks available that they can afford to have one of these picks holding out there for the next 3 or 4 years with protections because, they're not going to have a draft without a pick, in anytime soon. So they're going to have multiple firsts. So it actually could help them to throw an extra one in there just to get the deal done. Overpay just slightly, but it's really only an overpay for the rest of the teams in the league. This wouldn't be an overpay for them because they've got so many picks that will, they're not going to be able to use them all. They're going to end up having to get rid of them anyway. and you'd like to use that to get something that can help you win games and compete in the Western Conference. So I think this would be a fun trade for Oklahoma City. It would immediately make them more interesting. And let's see if they are willing to throw their hat in the ring here and make a move to solidify themselves as a top flight team in the Western Conference. But those are the 3 trades I think for Lavine. I think there's going to be more teams that pop up open out here. I mean, we had the Dame Lillard and the James Harden sagas of the last 6 months, but there really was only 2 or 3 teams that were possible for either of those players. I think you're going to have a lot more teams that are interested in Lavine, or at least open to Lavine. Still makes a lot of money, but there's some salary and some teams out there that can throw things together. He's still young enough that they can sell themselves on maybe 5 to 6 more good years, prime years of Lavine. So I think we're going to have some great trade conversations and some great rumors coming out and then over the next couple of weeks heading into the Christmas holiday and trade season in the new year. We'll see if something happens sooner or later with Zach Lavine and the Chicago Bulls. But would really appreciate a like and subscribe to the channel. Making some more content, would appreciate any feedback on what you guys want to see. Questions about the trade. Maybe if you completely disagree with me, let me know in the comments. I don't have thin skin over here, so it's not gonna hurt my feelings if you think I'm a complete idiot with these ideas. But I would love to hear feedback from you guys and excited for what's to come. Peace.